Hey guys, it's Lizzie. So, orientation is locked. Wow, there's so many comments, guys. Hey everyone, am I here alone? Hi. Orientation is locked, rotate device back. I think she fell asleep and forgot about her live. So I don't know what the deal is because this stream is like this and not this way. So I wonder how it's going to upload. But we have a new roommate moving in, so I had to kind of help tour the apartment and meet everyone. So that's why I'm late. They came maybe like 30 minutes later than we thought. So I'm here now. Yay, aloha from Hawaii. Hi. I'm so confused how this is gonna upload because it's like this, and usually when you film it's like this. But we'll see. Yay, yo yo. Hi, J Rods. I'm actually really tired today, so I don't know how long I'm going to be able to talk, but basically, I was traveling this weekend visiting a friend, and so then I forgot to get my new medication. So then I was off my medicine for like 2 days, and at first you're fine because medicines have half-lives. So the half-life is the amount of time for half of it to go out of your system, and then gradually it like tapers down. So usually when you go off a med, it'll still be in your system for maybe like another week or something. So you don't notice at first when you go off of a medicine, but eventually you start to have really bad. I have work from tomorrow morning, but YOLO. Eventually you start to have effects of tapering off, like withdrawal effects. So I woke up this morning and it literally felt like I had a hangover. Like I had a horrible wrenching headache. And it kind of feels like when you didn't get enough sleep and you like super need coffee. So I felt like that this morning and I was like, no. So I just went to get my medication. So I'm good now, but there are a lot of things happening in politics right now that I want to talk about. I'm going to make full videos talking about the confession ban in California and the abortion bills because there's so many of them. But I just wanted to talk to you guys first and do a chill video, and then I'll upload a more edited thing for tomorrow. Greetings from Brazil. I have work tomorrow. Hi, Lizzie. I wanted to know, how do I refute Protestants when they say us Catholics are not saved? Can you give me any tips? So I think that if you're in a conversation like that, you're not going to be able to come up with a good answer in 20 seconds just because you'd have to explain the Catholic etymology of salvation, which I would honestly go into the Greek. The Greek word for faith, pistis, it's not a moment, it's not an intellectual assent to an idea, but it's entrusting your life to a cause. So I would start by saying your view of salvation is wrong, because when Jesus talked about salvation, when Jesus talked about faith, he was talking about not a moment, not an intellectual assent to any idea, but entrusting your life to God through actions. So I would start by the Greek etymology, because if people are saying they only go by the Bible, you should just go back to the Bible and define faith. Something else really important in Greek etymology, surprisingly, taking Greek really helped me become Catholic. A lot of things we learned. So another thing is that there's a lot of, it's difficult to perfectly translate things, right? So Jesus will constantly say, the kingdom of heaven is coming near, the kingdom of heaven is coming. But the actual grammar, Greek has very, very, very specific grammar that we do not have in English. So it's basically saying the kingdom of heaven has come near is the perfect grammar. Sometimes some translations I've seen actually do a good job, but has come near. So it's not saying like heaven's going to be soon. Jesus is saying, I am the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom of heaven has come near. So Jesus started the kingdom of heaven with himself when he came to earth. And then Jesus living in us, entrusting our lives to God through faith, which is not a moment, not an intellectual assent to an idea, but actions and actions reoccurring over time. That's what the kingdom of heaven, faith, salvation, it's all a process. So you can start with those etymology things, and maybe that will get people to start thinking differently about it. But I feel like if you get in a conversation with someone like that, they're not going to be open to it. Like, if that's their starting question. But I would say that Catholicism doesn't think of salvation as a moment, but they think of it as your entire life. And something really important that was repeated to me from when I was like young in college was bringing heaven to earth. That's the big Catholic motto, bringing heaven to earth. It's not about getting to heaven, but being heaven right now. Jesus set up the kingdom of heaven on earth as a physical church. And a lot of people don't realize this. They think that we're getting to heaven. Jesus' kingdom is in heaven. But when Jesus was on earth, he appointed Peter to be the head of the church. But it's really interesting wording. So in the Old Testament, there was always this second in command person to the king. And actually, if you read Lord of the Rings, this position is in Lord of the Rings. So if the king is ever gone from the city, this second in command position, called a steward, is a good English translation, will take over and be in charge if the king is gone. And if the steward dies, someone replaces the steward and there's a new steward. So this is a common thing set up in the Jewish monarchy. So the Jews of Jesus' time, his apostles, everyone he was ministering to who was Jewish, knew that this was how Jewish monarchies work. And so then when Jesus came on earth and he's like, I'm establishing my kingdom I'm the heir of David, David's kingdom, everyone thinks he's establishing literally a kingdom, not like a spiritual kingdom in heaven that we're going to go to, but right now a physical kingdom on earth. And so you have to go back to the Greek etymology. You have to go back to the first century Jewish culture at the time to understand these things. So I know there's a lot of big picture things, but that understanding of faith and kingdom and the steward position, how Jesus was, when Jesus says, I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven, this is not a metaphor. This is a phrase you can find in the Old Testament. The steward would literally wear the keys to the kingdom of heaven around his neck, like the actual keys to the gate of the kingdom. So I hope all of that is helpful. It's a completely different view of salvation. I actually have a video, why once saved, always saved is wrong. So that might be able to help you. So I know that's like a 7-minute answer to a question, but these things are really, really complicated. And that's why there's so much misunderstanding and stigma, because Catholic theology is difficult to understand. Just intrinsically it is, because Protestantism tries to simplify a lot of things that cannot be simplified. Lizzie talking about Lord of the Rings, I am very happy. I remember the steward in the Lord of the Rings. Gandalf had that in Boromir and Faramir's father. I hope you guys know what that is. It's faith plus works. I believe that, and I'm assuming that's what the Catholics believe. Yeah. And so a lot of people create this dichotomy between faith and works, but like I was saying, and you guys should honestly just go watch my Why Saved by Faith Alone is Wrong. Why Saved by Faith Alone is Wrong. My video will be one of the first ones that comes up. So the word for faith is not an intellectual assent. It's not a moment. It's not a faith statement. It's over time entrusting our actions to God. So there's no distinction between faith and works. And I remember being shocked when I learned this in school. And I literally asked my professor, do you think that because we're not carrying it over into our current language, that could affect our theology? And my professor is like, no, I don't think so. But now looking back, it's like that false understanding is literally the reason why people are not Catholic. Why do you stream so late? Because I work during the day. And I know that might be hard to believe because YouTube is my job. And so technically this is my job. But when I think of doing work, I think of writing video scripts, filming, editing, graphic design, business emails, reaching out to brands, stuff like that. I think of as work. And this is kind of something I don't think of as work, but maybe I should, because the way I do my days, so I sleep for 9 or 10 hours and I tend to go to bed around like 11 or noon. So then I wake up and then I go running, Bible study, I work during the day, and then now I stream. But yeah, I should definitely start streaming earlier because there's people in different parts of the country and the world. But also I have an international audience. But I still feel like some will agree when I say abortion shouldn't be criminalized for women who get them. Okay, I totally agree. And if you noticed, in the Alabama legislation, women would not go to jail. Only people performing abortions would go to jail. which I love. I can get behind that law. I think we should not be criminalizing women because women are not even shown ultrasounds when they get an abortion. So they don't know what's going on. Like, how can you know if you can't see it, if you can't hear the heartbeat? How do you know it's a person? And I did a lot of research into different phases of a pregnancy. I used to be pro-choice, and so I was actually really, really shocked to learn when the heartbeat starts. And I think a lot of people for the first time with all these heartbeat bills are realizing like, whoa, at 6 weeks there's a heartbeat. Most people did not know that until these heartbeat bills started happening. And so I think we should totally not blame a woman for getting an abortion when she is not the one looking at the ultrasound. She's not the one, she doesn't know the heartbeat, she doesn't know the science of the baby forming. We really only learn about human development in high school in like ninth grade biology. And I remember seeing pictures of, the developing fetus, but yeah, if you're a woman getting an abortion, you don't know what's happening. You don't know the science. 99 years in jail for doctors is the right punishment. Yeah, because it kind of shows, like, don't try this or your life is ruined, right? The same pro-choice who cried out of killing animals, the same pro-choice who loves animals but cannot love the baby inside their wombs, I believe pro-choice are not human. I believe the once saved, always saved is an evil doctrine influenced by Satan to withdraw Christians to turn away from God, but disguise it as our actions are okay because of a moment. So I don't feel that strongly about it because I grew up in an environment that was once saved, always saved. But I would say that I still felt very high motivation to live out my faith. That's I should make a whole series, Lies Catholics Believe About Protestants, because a lot of people I've talked to who only grew up in Catholic environments genuinely think that Protestants have this mentality where it's like, oh, I'm saved, now I can just do whatever I want. Like, now I don't have to do anything in my faith. But I think most Protestants, like everyone I know, you have this intense feeling of love for God and you want to live for him and be his vessel and do anything he needs you to do in the world and you want to sacrifice for him. And so even if technically we see it as once saved, always saved, most Protestant churches that exist now do not even heavily focus. Like, I never heard the phrase once saved, always saved ever in my churches growing up. We were taught you're baptized for the forgiveness of sins, but it was never this attitude of it's over, now you can do whatever you want. So I think it's a huge stigma when people think Protestants don't feel like they need to do anything for their faith. We totally do. So that's a huge stigma, and I don't think, like, I think in general in America, Catholics are the ones who are not living out their faith compared to Protestants. Like, attendance is so bad for mass and stuff, And I think that the whole point of confession in Catholicism is obviously it does forgive sins. Jesus is there in the confessional. The priests are acting in Christ. It's Jesus who's there. So we're interacting with Jesus. But what I really like about confession as a practical thing in my faith is that it forces me to constantly be accountable and to think about what I'm doing, what needs to change, how I'm hurting people, how I'm hurting myself, how it can be better. So it forces me to constantly, sorry, I heard music, but does that make sense? So I feel like because of confession, I'm constantly, even when I was Protestant, I was always very intense about living out my faith, but now I'm analyzing it nitpicky, detailed in a way I never was before. And so I think if Catholics went to confession, then we would be even more intense about living out our faith. Paul told the Christians that once you are saved, does that mean you can continue to sin? Heaven forbid. No. Yeah, absolutely. And so as a Protestant, you're reading that verse and no one is ever thinking like once saved, always saved. Okay, let's go do whatever we want. Like, no one thinks like that. I didn't mean to sound hostile. I probably wouldn't have worded it in a different way. Yeah, but when you say like Satan and evil, that comes across in a strong way, right? It's weird when churches put emphasis on little kids at church camps accepting Jesus so that they will be saved. Like, my friend accepted God at a camp when she was 5, but she's not Christian now. Yeah, because they think baptism is so important, and like if someone's not baptized, like they're gonna die, they're gonna go to hell. And Catholics don't view it that way as much. Like, in a Protestant church, if you want to become a Christian, immediately get baptized. In a Catholic church, you have to go through the Becoming Catholic class, RCIA, for like a year before you're baptized. And in the early church, sometimes the RCIA would be like 3 years. And so you'd be in this class learning about how to be a Christian for 3 years before being baptized, because that's how integral and important it is to actually know the faith and be able to live it out. And we have a sponsor now. When you become Catholic, you have someone like stand behind you, but you're not really mentored by them spiritually. Whereas before, like thousands of years ago, not thousands, but like in the early church, this person would be kind of mentoring your faith for like those years you're in the class and making sure that you're living out the faith before you get baptized. Whereas in Protestant churches, it's very much like baptized, baptized. And in Catholic, it's like make sure you actually know what you're getting yourself into. That's what I've noticed. Another aspect is no one can walk in the Spirit at all the time, as the scripture encourages. Only Jesus was able to because he didn't have a sinful nature. Yeah, but at the same time, Jesus constantly says, be perfect as my Father is perfect. Like, Jesus has huge expectations for all of us. Have you seen Unplanned? Yes. I was going to make a video on it and I never did. Why force the child or woman to have a constant trigger of the event that occurred? I think it's absolutely awful, and I made a video talking about the different forms of Plan B pill and birth control, not because I'm encouraging people to do birth control, but just because there's a lot of lies and stigmas amongst Catholics about birth control. So there's something called the day after pill, and there are several different versions of the day after pill. And one of them does not cause an abortion. It does not cause the uterine lining to bleed out and the zygote to die. It just prevents you from ovulating. So if you do get raped, you can take the day after pill and it will prevent the egg from being released and prevent you from getting pregnant. So I totally support that. And I think that a lot of Catholics don't, which is just because they don't understand basic science about these pills. So obviously do your research, but there are several different types of pills. If you do get raped, I really encourage you to do the day after pill thing. So, and it's not an abortion. I'm completely pro-life. I'm disabled, and before I was born, a doctor told my mom to have an abortion with me because he wasn't sure what disability I would have. Yeah, and I really don't like it. Almost seems like the same kind of Nazi science, and that sounds really bad. Like, I hate when people compare things to the Holocaust that isn't like actual gulags genocide, but it's very similar ideology where you think that people of a certain mental illness, people of a certain disability don't deserve to live. And the fact that we're like, oh, you may have Down syndrome. In the future, if you're new here, I have bipolar disorder. I guarantee in like 20 years, people are going to be like, oh, my baby has bipolar, my baby's schizophrenic, I'm gonna have an abortion. That's what it's gonna turn into. And when you start to say that a certain group of people don't deserve to live, I don't understand how everyone's not like freaking out and angry and yelling about this type of ideology. It's literally the same thing that Nazis used to kill groups of people. Yeah, I don't like how a lot of the pro-choice reasons are wiping out people with disabilities. And something else. So, okay, there are a lot of situations where the baby's gonna have some type of thing where they're gonna die immediately upon being born. So that's a lot of the situation. It's not specifically Down syndrome. Yes, Down syndrome is one of the issues, but a lot of the reason doctors are encouraging moms to get abortions is it's because, okay, this child is going to have this condition, 99.9% chance the baby's going to die upon being born. It's not going to be able to survive. The baby doesn't have a heart. The baby doesn't have a brain. You know what I mean? Like, they're very confident that the child will not survive. It's not like some Nazi ideology. It's just they think that the child is not going to survive. And so that I understand. Like, I don't think that's that weird to be saying. But so I'm gonna answer your super chat really soon. So the problem with that is that there are many situations when a doctor has said that definitely this baby's gonna be born without a heart, the baby's gonna die and not have a life. So a lot of people think that, but then there are so many cases where the doctor was wrong and the baby ends up not even having that disability, not even having that problem. So that's why I think, yes, it's really, really painful to think like, oh, my baby has a 99% chance of dying right after I give birth. And it sucks if you know, like in semester one, that the baby could die right away. You kind of want to save the mom from the pain of having to go through like living this baby and birthing the baby. But if in like 5% of those cases the child actually ends up being a healthy baby, is it really worth telling moms to abort their babies? So that's my problem. There's so many cases where the doctor's wrong. Okay, super chat. Thank you so much for the donation, Sling. I love that you guys are supporting my life. Hi, Lizzie. I emailed Jeanette. She's my manager, if you did not know, and told her about the set of books. She emailed me back and asked to know more about it. Continued in next super chat. Okay, I'll read the next super chat. So I'm kind of in the middle of moving right now. So I don't know. It's really, really difficult, like every part of my life right now, because I'm trying to figure out how to get packages from companies sent, how to receive checks from businesses, because I don't have anywhere to stay or live. So I'm not going to be homeless, guys, but I'm not going to have like an actual place for a few months. So yeah, I think I'm just gonna go with wherever I'm staying and have stuff mailed to my friends, but we'll see how things go. So you have to know like immediately when you're sending a package if you're a company working with me. So I feel like that ideal would fall under a medical reason. It's something that should not be celebrated, you know? Doctors are not God. Yeah. And there's constantly things in medicine where there are things that are mysterious that happen. A lot of people, like there's so many people who pray for a certain disease to go away and then it does, and it's like such a mystery because like the doctors talk cancer and then there's not cancer, and whether or not you believe in a God or not, there are just things that are mysterious that we don't know, and so doctors do not know 100%. And so when it comes to like aborting a baby because it might die, a lot of times the baby's fine. So I think we need to be careful. Yes, you got it going. Woman total inspiration on lifestyle and perspective. I think that if you're against abortion, don't have one, but no one should be telling someone else what they should be doing. I think that the thing with abortion, it's like obviously the most contentious topic in the country right now, but people literally think that abortion is murder. And I think for anyone who's liberal to not understand that is just so ignorant. Like it's so obvious what the pro-life position is. We're not saying like, oh, we're against this sex act, we're against eating this food, but it's like, no, we think that there's literally people being murdered. And it's the same thing with veganism. People are like, oh, why are you telling me how to eat? But vegans are saying we're literally torturing animals. It's not like, oh, I don't like torturing animals, but it's okay if you torture animals. Like people believe in moral absolutes. And I think that maybe a lot of people who are not religious genuinely do not believe in truth, and they don't believe in moral like objectivity. So that's why you can't say just like, oh, just don't have an abortion. The pro-life camp literally believes that it's murder. And so if you believe in murder and you believe in absolute truth and you believe in objective morality, then it is a concern what we're doing with other people. Even if the baby is going to die, it should be obvious that letting them die naturally is infinitely better than killing them. Here's the thing about the pro-choice position. It's abortion for any reason, no matter what. Okay, what Jacob is saying, I've actually read as well that if a baby is born dead, like stillborn, it's really, really healthy for the mom and dad to be able to hold the baby, like the dead baby, like in their arms before letting it go. It's just emotionally healthy. The doctors always, instead of taking the baby away, they let the parents like hold their baby and mourn the baby. And so I think that having an abortion, it might actually be more emotionally difficult to just have the abortion than to experience and actually hold their child. How about those pro-choice people who call a fetus a parasite? What the heck is wrong with those women? So I think that people, everything comes down to definition. So I actually understand what people mean by a parasite. A parasite is just I'm trying to think of the word, like symbiotic relationship. Is that the word? Comment below. Do you guys know what I'm talking about? We learned about this in like biology in high school, where there's certain like a symbiotic relationship. So there'll be like a moss underneath a tree, and the moss needs to be under the tree to get nutrients, but then the tree needs the moss to help the soil. You know what I mean? So there's those relationships where both types of nature are using each other. But then there are also something that's kind of like leeching on another person. So like with basic definitions of biology, it is kind of a parasitic relationship where it's completely depending on the woman. And so that's not something like against women, and that's not trying to use inhumane language, but they're just like defining what is going on biologically. Does that make sense? So I have not heard anything from her for 2 weeks. I told her the books and commentary are about Catholic eschatology. Continued. Thank you so much for the donation, Sling. I think that the reason she might not be getting back to you is because we're really concerned about my security, and I don't have a P.O. box. So if it's not a company sending me money, and it's a person who can just have access to where I live, we're really, really, really cautious about accepting stuff like that. So if you were able to send like a gift card and have me buy it, or have my address private, then we would be able to do that. But it's really, really hard with security. And I know it might be difficult for you to understand because from your perspective, like, you love me, watch my videos, you see really positive comments all the time. It's like we're a family, but it's really, really scary because I do get really bad threats, and I try to be really careful about revealing where I am at a given time and where I live. So that's why I'm very, very, very careful about who I work with and who's sending me things. So yeah, if you try to pretend to have a business when you don't have a business, yeah, it's not going to play over well. As a vegan, how do you respond to Romans 14:2? Let's see. So there was a thing in the early church where certain people were taking meat sacrificed to pagan gods and eating it, and other people weren't. And some people were really uncomfortable with it, and other people weren't. So that's horrible that those things happen to you, Lizzie. Yeah, it's just part of the territory. I made my whole video, the truth about being a YouTuber. It's like when you watch my YouTube channel, there is a, like on my YouTube homepage, same, at least it didn't freeze on a goofy thing. The truth about being a YouTuber is if you go to my main YouTube page, I talk about like the pros and cons, and I talk about a lot of the really sketchy, negative, awful things that happened to me as well. Anyway, so this passage in Romans 10, all of you guys can go read it. Romans 14. Why don't we just read? People are scary. How do you feel about tattoos? I'm totally fine with tattoos. There's a problem in the Old Testament, but there are a lot of things part of the Jewish law that had nothing to do with morality, you know? Okay, so Romans 14. I have 2 tattoos. The Lord tattooed me. Romans 14. Okay, so this is kind of a weird thing in scripture. Like, I feel like it has zero moral relevance. I mean, I'm gonna come up with some, since this is a question, maybe make some like modern day applications, but in general, this is something that does not reflect our world at all and has literally nothing to do with the modern church. So, I know and am convinced in the Lord Jesus that nothing is unclean in itself. So what this means is that in the Old Testament, you were not allowed to eat like shrimp and mussels and different types of food or pork, just because, I mean, there's a lot of theories, but I think one of the reasons that God created these food laws is because it was difficult to, like, it was easier to get sick from these foods than it is now. And so I think part of it was like a health thing. But anyways, so Peter has this vision in the book of Acts, and there's like a sheet coming down with all these animals, and God is like, go eat, kill and eat, and basically saying you can eat any animal. And I hope YouTube hasn't been demonetizing your videos. It's been a major problem recently. My last video got demonetized, but I'm just gonna start doing a lot of sponsorships. So I know people get annoyed by sponsorships, but it's like I have to make money. So I'm just gonna be doing a lot of sponsorships and affiliate links and stuff to keep making income. And also your super chats on here really, really help me a lot. So even just donating like $1 or $5 is really, really helpful. So I love you guys so much. I will continue making videos and find ways to make income. Also my Patreon. Anyway, so this Bible verse in the good morning from the UK. Can't believe I made it on a live stream. These usually happen while I'm asleep. About to get the kids up, but I just wanted to say you're the best. Aw, I love you so much. I'm so happy you're able to come on a stream. See, this is why I stream so late, guys, because people in other countries want to watch. Anyways, so was that clear? So in the Old Testament, there were laws about certain foods to not eat. It was a health thing. It was a cultural thing. I mean, we could just spend 5 hours explaining the context of that. In the New Testament, so obviously Jesus is Jewish, all the apostles are Jewish, Jesus is the Jewish Messiah, and so everyone's Jewish, but then we start having Gentile Christians intermixed as well. So if your brother is hurt by what you eat, your contact is no longer in accord with love. Do not, because of your food, destroy him for whom Christ died. So do not let your good be reviled. For the sake of food, do not destroy your working God. Everything is indeed clean, but it is wrong for anyone to become a stumbling block by eating. It is good not to eat meat or drink wine or to do anything that causes your brother to stumble. So basically, I'm going to do your super chat in a second. So basically this is saying, even if something is not inherently immoral, but if it really, 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 really bothers and hurts and makes it difficult for someone you know to be a Christian, maybe have some consideration and change your behavior, which is completely opposite of every part of American and Western culture, where it's very much like, this is only about me. If it doesn't affect you, I don't care. I can do whatever I want. If it affects you, that's your problem. And so I think that, for example, cursing, I don't care if people curse. Paul curses in the Bible. There's a lot of sexual jokes in the Old Testament. And so it's not a moral problem to curse as long as you're not cursing someone out. But some people, it really, really bothers them to hear curse words. And so if you have a friend like that, don't curse around them. You know what I mean? It's just like a nice thing to do. And I think it's even similar with how you dress. Like where I live, it's very liberal and it's really open how you dress. And something might not be inherently immodest or inherently a problem, but it might really, really bother people who you're hanging out with or people online. So maybe don't dress a certain way if it's gonna really, 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 really irritate, anger someone who you love. And I'm not saying for strangers, like if someone's a stranger. Just to support your videos, Zoong John, I don't know